Welcome to Conversations with Sarah. I'm Sarah Reddan, therapeutic coach of SRTT, and today I'm joined by Karen Hutchinson, Believe accredited practitioner and fifth dimension Earth certified healer. And we're going to talk about supporting our wellness with self-love. Welcome, Karen. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we have lots of crossover with our work and the stuff that we do about self-love. So I'm really interested to kind of hear how that fits with like your story, your personal journey, and the things that you do. I have never heard of a Believe accredited practitioner or fifth dimension Earth certified healer. So I really want to get into a little bit of what that is and kind of what brought you to that. So let me know a little bit about, what your professional stuff before we go into the personal stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my profession in terms of those titles are what I would call part of my journey, what I've collected in terms of accreditation through the journey of wanting to feel fearless, wanting to feel good, wanting to get rid of limiting beliefs. And, you get to a certain age where you kind of go, there's got to be more to it than this, And I guess my journey really started about 10 years ago on a discovery to just feel better in myself. So externally, people will go, you're quite confident, you're quite outgoing, you seem like you've got everything thumbed up in life. But you know what it's like internally? It's like, wasn't happy in my relationship, wasn't happy in the job that I was doing. I wasn't that confident. I was only confident in the things that I did every single day for such a long time. So therefore it became the norm. And kind of what triggered it for me was going on, I went on one of those, sessions where you kind of go, let's sort out my year. What am I going to do for this year? Those kind of workshops.
Yeah.
And I remember going through these questions and thinking, gosh, I'm not having enough experiences in my life. I'm kind of tick boxing life, marriage, kids. And I'm not saying any of these are wrong, but it was what I was led to believe that I needed to do to feel good.
Yeah, doing the societal norms, the things that we're told that this is success, this is achievement, and if you do this, you're going to feel fulfilled. And then we do it, and it's like, but there's a little bit more. Like, there's got to be a little bit more, surely. I'm not here just to do housework and go to work and care for other people.
Absolutely. And it was, like I say, being a mum was important to me, but it's not all of who I am.
Yeah.
And being a wife was important to me, but it wasn't fulfilling me at that time. And there was all these little things, having a lovely home. Yeah, that was great. But I still felt crap, and I guess that was like the pivotal moment. So you kind of then find yourself on this bit of a discovery, don't you, of, I guess they called it personal development. And what else do I want to be doing in life? And what else could I be doing? What's going to make me feel good? But what that did was it led me to understanding what I had let go of. I had let go of ultimately self-love, but I didn't term it as self-love then. For me, self-love was, let's have a nice bubble bath and feel good. And, let's go and get a new outfit. That was all kind of transitional stuff, like in the moment.
Yeah.
But actually I needed to get to the core of why I didn't feel trusting in myself that I could do other things, why I didn't feel worthy of being able to not do the same job for 30 years, why I didn't, feel confident in myself and constantly comparing myself to other people and other things. And that took me on this journey of connecting with fifth dimension Earth. So I did lots of other things in between, Reiki, I wanted to get into energy. I was really drawn and nudged into more of a spiritual kind of way of living. And that then led me to fifth dimension Earth, where I understood what the belief releasing process was, which as a Believe accredited practitioner now, it sounds all kind of out there and woo, but actually the fundamentals are understanding your core emotions of what they, you know, why they're making you feel the way they do, and understand the experiences that created them through your whole life, and then being able to energetically let go. So the difference is all of the other things that I did, i.e. affirmations and CBT and all of those things, are wonderful, but they were more dealing in the moment. I would call, you know, your transitional vibration, things to make you feel good here and now. And then the next day, the next week, that core limiting belief would still come back up and back in your face. And it's like, I did that affirmation last week. Surely that should change.
That's enough. Yeah. I mean, and it's what I describe getting into the underneath. So it's the core stuff. It's the things that kind of those messages you've internalized, and the things that you aren't consciously aware of until you start looking into, why do I do these things? Why do I have this thought? Why do I just automatically react in this way when this experience happens? It is once you start getting into those things, it transforms all the other stuff as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of it is really, really subtle, and you don't notice it. Like, I would get a look from my son that he didn't mean anything by it, but that look would trigger something in me, with my ex-husband, for example, or you know, having a conversation in the kitchen over a cup of tea would then trigger millions of experiences that I've had, positive and negative, in that kitchen, for example. It's understanding how the subconscious really works, and getting to the root core of that, which is the stored vibration, the stored beliefs that you're holding, so that you can kind of really let them go energetically. And that's what fifth dimension earth process allowed me to be able to do. So, you know, to say I'm no longer triggered by anything from what was is a really powerful statement, but it's a true one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you get to.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I'm sat with the phrase in my mind, spicy psychology, which is something I heard recently, which I just love. That it's an underpinning like academic thought behind the work that you do, because it resonates with like the hypnotherapy that I do and some of the stuff that I do, but it's got that little sprinkle of like the energetic stuff, the woo stuff, which is where the spiciness comes in. And it's just kind of that it sounds very much that it's that kind of layer of intuitive being with that spiritual practice. And I love that there's all of these therapies that bring in kind of all the dimensions of the learnings that we have, and makes it accessible to people in a different way.
Yeah, I think for me, if I'd have gone from 0 to fifth dimension earth kind of concepts, I would have gone, whoa, that's a little bit weird. I think you have to kind of build your awareness around some of the building blocks. So Reiki for me was my building block to understand energy. So it's kind of getting yourself,
it's that
there,
gateway, isn't it? It is that gateway therapy, because it for me was I'm Reiki trained, and that was one of my kind of step into the energy space and being like, oh yeah, this actually makes sense when you think about it. It really does make sense.
And you know, this whole process is in connection with higher self. So again, not many people understand higher self connection. They might deem it as intuition, inner guidance, guardian angels, you know, depending on how woo or spiritual you know you are in terms of your awareness. But the fundamentals are that this process is different because you are doing it with your higher self, and it's with your higher self that knows everything about you, knows all of your experiences. They have literally lived your life with you, and therefore you're able to then recall with them experiences that you potentially have really suppressed, you know, from in the womb to early childhood right through to now. And, you know, they help you understand your journey level experiences, your journey. You know, we talk about repetitive experiences. If you don't deal with the core emotion, it just keeps showing up for you in different ways. And that's the power of the process, because it enables you to get to your true experience. Whereas, you know, some of the practices when it comes to transitional vibration are more generic. You know, state affirmations, for example, is a really good example of that's like a generic way of dealing with the here and now. Whereas creating powerful truths with your higher self is a specific truth connected to an experience and emotion for you and you only. You know, it's like really going that little bit deeper to get to that stored vibration, rather than the transitional here and day, or that's peed me off today, or that's made me happy, or that's triggered me in that, you know, in that conversation. So yeah, so it is something you need to be open-minded with. But when you are, it changes so much.
And is that what kind of got you to where you are now with your self-love, this using these therapies and becoming a practitioner? Where does it fit in your journey?
Oh, absolutely. So it was going through the process myself, and you only know what's to be true for you. So as much, you know, so these experiences were coming up for me that I had literally suppressed so much, because what you do is you protect yourself from experiences, and you build this almost like an energetic barrier within. So all of core experiences are made up of trust, love, hope, truth, and strength. So they're like your core emotions, and then off of that feeds, you know, lack of belief, lack of confidence, worth, and all of those things. So getting to be able to literally change the way that I feel on a daily basis around experiences that were really, really triggering for me, you know, certain people in my life were really triggering for me. And it's only by going through that experience, that process, that you can then go, I'm no longer literally, I haven't forgotten what's happened, of course, because it's in my conscious awareness, but I no longer feel that, like that pull, that, you know, when you get that sicky feeling in your stomach, because it's like, oh God, it's them again. You know, my phone would come up with their name on it. It's like, oh, I don't get that. So therefore, that's how I can feel the difference in this process compared to all the others that have worked for me. Like I said, I'm not knocking any of them, because I feel that they all have their place. But you get to the point where you go, right, now it's time to really let go.
Yeah, but this is your experience, so it's valid. It's your experience, and it's not about saying somebody else's experience isn't valid or another therapy isn't valid. And then that's the whole point of being here, is that we all have these different experiences, and if sharing your story resonates with someone that can then tap into this stuff, then, you know, as helpers, we've done what we are here to do.
Yes, and it's you know, when I take clients through the process, I mean, it's deemed a spiritual awakening. Yeah, it's an awakening of your broadest truths, so your journey level truths that have defined what you have experienced in your life. So, you know, for me, I had a huge lack of trust and worth through the whole of my life that showed up in so many different ways. And you can see how you absorb beliefs from others, and you can see the experience, and you go, oh gosh, yeah, I remember that conversation that I had with that person, and I remember how I felt at that time, because I think that's a true experience for me. And it's through the creating truth that you kind of set the desire to feel differently about that experience. So it's massive perspective shifts. It's massive feeling the truth of that experience, and also understanding that emotions don't care about experiences. So whether you have had a really rough time because you have spilt milk all over the kitchen and it's made you feel the way that you do, or you have, experienced, failure in a job. No, it's not, emotions don't define the experience that you're having as to how it feels for you. So if you feel lack of worth in both of those experiences, it's a true energy. But someone go, oh, it's only spilled milk, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So you kind of go, well, actually no, because it's made me feel the way I do. And it's always connected back to a core belief that you've held before the spilt milk. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back, that kind of saying. But if you feel unworthy in both of those experiences, it is not for anyone else to define how you feel. And that's kind of what this process is about, is remembering that, emotions don't care about your experiences. If you feel anxious or sad or frustrated or, angry about that experience, then that's okay. That's a true feeling for you in that moment.
So how does self-love help the way in which you view yourself in that moment?
So it's connecting to the experience. So if, for example, I remember in my early teens, for example, boyfriends, getting into relationships scenario. And if a boy picks a different girl over me, it's like, oh, I must not be good enough. You literally absorb somebody else's decision and reflect it back onto yourself. And whereas self-love would enable you to go, actually, no, that's not a true reflection of that moment. Actually, you are worthy, but just not of them. And they're okay. It's okay for them to make a different choice. It's almost like going, it's not all about me.
It exactly is that though, isn't it? It is about it's other people making their decisions based on a filter that you're not privy to. It isn't all about you. And sort of we do beat ourselves up, don't we, about choices other people make or experiences we miss out on. And really, that's like my fundamental message is be kind to yourself, because it's like if you have to show yourself kindness as you go through these things and know that it isn't all about you. If somebody doesn't know you, how can they be rejecting you?
Absolutely. But it's all those pockets of moments throughout your life, whether, as I say, use experience about not getting a job. Somebody else got a job, therefore I must not be good enough. And it's all of those little experiences through life that start to build that compound. And if you want to, I don't know, for example, start a new business and it doesn't work out the first time you do it, oh, I mustn't be good enough. Actually, so you completely internalize that. And that, understanding that self-love is about core emotions of trust and worth and belief in yourself and confidence and loving yourself. I remember at school we used to say, oh God, look at her, she really loves herself, doesn't she? And so it was deemed as like, you can't love yourself, you can't think you're good enough for something, you shouldn't brag about what you're good at. And it's
a real cultural thing, isn't it? It's a real cultural message. And I think obviously my lived experience is as a woman, but as a woman I feel that when we are confident, when we are kind of tooting our own horn, so to speak, and like celebrating ourselves, it is seen as a negative. It's seen as being conceited, like up yourself, all of these kind of real negative words that my observation at times men don't have that. There's different words, so it almost feels like sometimes we're at even more of a kind of positioning of like, oh, other people can be proud of me, but I can't be too proud of myself. I can't be too confident about my own ability, my own achievement. Like the accolade has to come from somebody else rather than me. And it diminishes how you are allowed to see yourself before you even like that conflict between like, I think I'm amazing, I'm loving what I'm doing. oh, but I'm not allowed. Am I allowed? It's a messy space, isn't it?
It really is. And also knowing that, you know, there are certain threads of self-love that women really latch onto in terms of lack of self-love. But, you know, self-love's for all. It's not just for women, it's for men as well. But they will
absolutely. I mean, yeah,
in different ways, won't they?
Yeah.
It affects them in different ways. But, you know, ultimately, when you can go, right, actually, I'm not going to hang out with XYZ people because it doesn't make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than getting into obligation of having to do certain things for others that don't make you feel good, that's self-love. When you can go, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That is, you know, a self-love moment for you. There are many things that we have to do, of course, but then it's like, well, actually, can I do it at a different time? That's self-love for you. Can I do it on a, you know, in a different way? And that is self-love. So it's a real subtle energy, but yet so powerful when you bring it into everyday life, everyday experiences.
And it's that emotional well-being, isn't it? It's being resilient, like you've just described to me. You've just described having boundaries. I don't know, where do you feel like it's important with that kind of emotional well-being?
Oh gosh, for me, you know, what I have really come to understand, it is in every single moment of my day. And some of it is conscious and some of it is unconscious. But so for me, you know, the relationship that I have now, you know, I have the most wonderful, loving relationship because I felt my worthiness of it. I had really clear boundaries of what I wanted in a relationship. And it's not, again, I'm not saying it's all about me, but it is you first. It has to be you first. And then that encourages the others around you to have the same want for themselves too. Because when you can have it for yourself, you are giving the same back, you know, like attracts like, right? Basics of law of attraction.
Yeah, that's what I'm sitting with, that it like thinking of my own kind of experience, the more I've connected in with my self-worth, my self-love, my self-care, the people around me are on that journey as well, are in that space of being more like the clearer communication, the boundaries, the respect, it's just the vibe is different, isn't it? And it does, you like attract like you say.
Yeah, and but more so, the biggest influence it's had for me is allowing myself to have experiences that I probably would have shied away from and not allowed myself to do. So, for example, you know, my husband and I, 4 years ago, we took a sabbatical and we went and lived in Ibiza for 6 months. You know, I would never have given myself permission to do something that mad. People go, what? You're doing what? But again, that was all their fears projecting onto me. And ultimately, this is something I really wanted to do, but I wouldn't, if I didn't give myself permission, if I didn't feel worthy enough, if I didn't trust myself to be able to know that this was a good thing for me, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have allowed myself that opportunity to do that. Another one was 2 years ago, my husband applied for come dine with me couples, right? One of the biggest things I would not have done, even something like this, I would not have gone on camera. I wouldn't have had photos taken. You know, that for me was just like the biggest ick, because it's like looking back at yourself, you know, one of the biggest parts of self-love is, you know, loving who you are. And I would never have gone, it's going, oh, come on, it'll be a laugh. And if I hadn't have started the work on myself, I'd have gone, no, there's no way I'm doing that. But I went, okay, I'm doing it. And sometimes you kind of have to push yourself through some of that little bit of eek, but it's a new eek rather than what was eek. And I had the best week ever. The absolute best time. I didn't care what I looked like on camera. I didn't care what I sounded like, you know, because, you know, everything feels like it's 10 times more than the real you. But I had the best time. And ultimately, because we had the best time, we also won. So
Now, that's one of our guilty pleasures in our house. We watch couples come down with me. So I'm like, oh, I must have watched you. I must have seen you. I am going to go back and watch the episode now, because my husband's going to be so impressed when I tell him who I've spoken with today. I love it, but that's the thing. That's what it's about, though, isn't it? It's these experiences that you've allowed yourself to have because you've been able to love who you are, accept who you are, and allow that to be seen by the world. What a powerful place to be.
Yeah, and it just makes a difference, because, you know, ultimately life's for living, and you are missing out on living so much of life when you're constantly focusing on what you can't do and what you're not good enough at, and what, you know, what people think, you know, judgment from others. Like, it just is debilitating. It really is debilitating.
And I think it's one of the biggest things that kind of, with my clients, that can hold them back is, and myself along my journey, is that judgment that other people are going to place on you. And really, let me think how to word this, because I don't want to swear on the podcast. Really, like, most people who are sitting and judging you is because they are judging themselves. A lot of the times, I've talked about this before, I've recently started going to roller disco, and I for the very first time went out in the wild a few weeks ago. And people were looking at me. Of course they are. I'm a 44-year-old woman dressed in like leggings and safety gear for skating, bright coloured hair, skating around my local park, looking like I don't know what I'm doing, because I don't know what I'm doing. Now, yes, there was moments where I felt a little self-conscious and was aware that, you know, people are going to be judging me. But I chose to focus on the fact that they're probably jealous that they don't have skates and they're not out there enjoying themselves. And I think it is that kind of how we filter that experience makes such a difference. Why would we want to live our life smaller because someone else is going to judge the joy that we're having?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest changes that I've found with judgment in particular is that when you stop judging yourself, you actually stop judging other people as well, because it's not important to you. When you allow yourself the love and compassion for who you are, what you've got, what you're doing, you let go of judging other people. And again, you're then stopping attracting judgment. And actually, what happens is you start inspiring other people, because what you're doing is what other people just really want to do. They want to let go and do something new. They want to try different things. We're not here to do one thing all of the time. We're here to do as many blinking things as we really want to. And roller skating is just one of the best things to have fun with, right?
It is so much fun. And the amount of
we went out kayaking. I didn't have a Scooby what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I had my kayak. I had my me safety jacket on, and we just went for it.
Yeah.
And
but don't you find, as you kind of get out and embrace these things and talk about it, and so I talk about the skating a lot, because the more I've talked about it, the more other people in my sphere of influence are like, that's something I've always wanted to do, or I've always wanted to do this, and I've been worried that, oh, am I too old? And it's like, oh, just do it, because like, you're only going to get older. Like, just go do it. There's loads of things that I want to do, and I joke about I'd love to learn to DJ, and that's on my wish list for when I'm a grandma. Like, I'm going to do that when I'm a grandma. Like, why not?
I'm learning right now to be a DJ. That is
I love it.
thing. My husband's a DJ, and it's like, why have you not shown? I know how to do, loo breaks, count on the beat and change the track. I know the basics. I went, no, I want to learn more now. I want to learn how to mix. I want to know how to create. I want to know how to do all of those things. And not for anybody else, but for me.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about what other people think anymore. And it's like, there are so many things for us to try. I wrote a book this year, January. Started it last year. I would never I just about wrote a post-it note, let alone write a book, you know. And I allowed myself to just go, no, I want to write a book. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And it was all about that. It was all about overcoming your fears and your limiting beliefs to create whatever it is an experience that you want to create.
Yeah.
And it is just one of the most freeing things to do when it feels good for you to do it. If it doesn't feel good, then don't do it.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? Really, that's what self-love is all about. It's embracing those opportunities, the things that bring you joy, the stuff that you want to do, not worrying about the judgment that other people might place on you, not placing judgment on yourself. Like joy is for me, it's the biggest part of like self-love. It opens up so much joy that you can have in your life, because you just kind of have that childlike enthusiasm and allow yourself to go with whatever you want to do, not in a self-destructive way. It's in a nurturing, nourishing way. Like, I know you've shared some of your experiences. Are there any other experiences that you want to share that your self-love journey has led you to? Because it sounds like you've done so much.
I have, and again, I celebrate that because it's fun, I last week, a couple of weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to help my husband at a festival. There's a local festival here that he does artist accreditation for, and so I said, I helped him last year, but I was kind of a little bit low key, sussing it all out. And this year I'm like, I'm going all in. I want to look after the artists as well. I want to look after these superstar DJs, right? And before, I'd have felt really lack of worth to be able to interact with so-called celebrities. And I went, Bagsy looking after Gokwan, Bagsy.
Oh, what a joy.
Him. And he was just an absolute joy to look after on the day. I looked after other awesome DJs as well, but it was about that moment for me. It was like, no, I'm not going to shy away from this. I want to interact with everybody and not feel lack of worth because of who they are and what they do.
Yeah.
And so we're now besties. We're not quite, but
no, you're besties. I'm sure you would be.
We're doing it again this week at a club in London, and it's like I'm not just one thing. I'm not here to just do one thing. I'm here to experience many things. And if it means looking after DJs, for example, and for the day and having fun doing it, then I'm absolutely going to do that. What else is it? I've actually also managed a really tricky time in my life. So there's two things that literally all came at once. And that was leaving my 30-year career, that, through the pandemic, the opportunity, I'm going to use the word opportunity because that's how I saw it, of redundancy. And it wasn't, a given prospect, but I kind of set the intention that actually now it's time for me to have complete trust in myself and do things that light me up. And the biggest part of that job that I loved was coaching and supporting people. But now I get it to do with people that really want it, not because they have to. And that took a huge amount of trust, self-love, in terms of belief in myself, confidence that I could leave this really stable core job that I've had, since I was 19, to go and just do things for myself and start, allowing myself to just be all in to what it is I really want to do. So that's been a massive, so that was only last November, whereas I've been doing this like alongside the day job, because it's like, money,
it's a big step, isn't it? It's a big step.
The normal stuff, of course, when you've got responsibilities. So that has been really, I'm nearly a year now, and it's like I don't even think about my previous job. It's like it was meant to be. Of course it was meant to be. It's all about timing, right? But at the same time, I was managing another, difficult situation with my dad. My poor dad was diagnosed with cancer last January, so the beginning of the pandemic, or literally just before the pandemic kicked in. And then as I was going to then keep the visits up with him, because he's like 4 hours away, pandemic hit, so I couldn't go and see my dad, because not only was he vulnerable, we were in lockdown.
Incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it was really, really tough. But if I hadn't have done the work that I'd done, I wouldn't have managed that really tricky time with so much strength and self-love, and not beating myself up because I couldn't do X, Y, Z, and, you know, not feeling guilty because I couldn't see him, you know, because it was out of my control.
Exactly.
But, you know, when I was able to see him, that was great. And, you know, and sadly, you know, my dad literally pivoted downhill really quite quickly. So, you know, he passed away in the September. So that was a, you know, really, really tough time. And, you know, we are in it, even though I had let go of all of my limiting beliefs and I really understood my core experiences, when you're still managing crappy times, you just do it so much better. You do it with so much more love and compassion for yourself first, as well as those that are around you. And if I hadn't had that, I think I would have really, really struggled with the grief and the loss. And so, you know, having that core strength to deal with crappy times really just helped you kind of bring that balance. I always see, I talk to my clients about this vibration balance. So you're floating along the lazy river of life, and you're in the middle. So for those of you who are listening, so think about your vibration on a scale in the middle, and then when you have really good times, your vibration goes really, really high and above the line, and then you kind of then settle back down to balance. And then when you have your crappy times, you kind of drop down below the line. But you're able to come back to balance so much quicker. You don't stay in that, you know, in that darkness. You don't stay in the low times as much, because you're able to bounce back. But so, you know, it's twofold. So even when, you know, people have these really high experiences, they go, oh, why can't I just feel this really high all of the time? Well, because it's exhausting. You know, you can't be that high all of the time. The feel-good factor is in that middle, when you're able to just be.
Contentment, isn't it? It's that.
Yeah, because that's kind of what, you know, when you have lack of love, you're always searching for the highs. You're looking for ways to fix the highs. You know, that's how addictions kind of flow in, because you're looking to put the bandage on, make me feel better. Whereas when you can really let go of those fears, you don't have to keep looking for the bandage to be, you know, be put on, because you're in that balanced state. And, you know, that is just so freeing.
Yeah, completely agree. Now I am noticing the time, so this feels actually like a really good place to kind of bring it to an end, if that feels okay for you. Sure. Because it's, you know, a natural sort of space, like being in that space of kind of calm and joy, and that's where we all want to be at, isn't it? So like let's bring it to a close there. Is there anything you want to kind of leave people listening with?
I guess for me, the biggest thing for me to say to people is, be your biggest cheerleader, be your biggest supporter. Notice self-talk, notice how you feel, and don't, you know, it's about not allowing yourself to go there in terms of beating yourself up. It's taking action now. It's, you know, allow yourself to go, you know what, enough's enough. I don't need to feel this way about myself anymore. And, you know, there are many people that don't seek help and support because they don't feel worthy of feeling better. They don't feel worthy of feeling good. And also not knowing what feel good looks like without the sadness and the trauma. So, you know, find what self-love means for you. What part of that, you know, the conversation that we've had is something that really lights you up, and go, I actually want a bit more of that, and start there. because it's there that it will start to grow. So don't see it as a massive, massive overhaul, and just find the pockets of joy that are in your everyday life right now.
Yeah, thank you. So what I heard is you are worthy, follow your joy and take the little steps.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with me. I've really enjoyed our conversation, so I thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And for those that have listened, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. To find out more about me, my guests, and to give us feedback and suggestions, visit srtt.co.uk and follow SRTT Podcast on social media. I'll be back next Wednesday with a new guest. Until then, stay curious and be kind to yourself.